And good morning. Thank you for joining our seminar of Women to Watch Super Mega Ultra Women Building Up and Not Tearing Down. This seminar was conducted during the Women of Color in 2021, and it is back by popular demand. I am your moderator, Antoinette Gant, and I'm an engineer officer in the United States Army. I know this is brown, looks like the Marines. I think, Renita, I'm here to represent you. But it is such a pleasure to be back doing something for women of color and being able to talk about women supporting women. Now, before we even start, there's just a few housekeeping notes that I want to make sure that I give you. The first one is know that we're on the Women of Color STEM DTX platform, and that can be accessed all year round with different activities and events, just like the summit that we're actually having today. We are streaming live with Metaverse STEM City USA. This is a new platform that was introduced just recently by CCG. And I tell you, they have been having some exciting events. Just last week, there was a jazz conference or jazz set that actually happened on, I think it was like last Friday. So if you have any questions, I'm going to put up the slides. We're going to have the slides put up here in a few minutes. And what you will see is there's a code in the corner of the screen, and your questions can be selected and they will be put on the screen for us to be able to answer through the session that we're having today. And at the end of the session, if you have other questions that you had that we weren't able to get to, or you just want some one-on-one time with myself and Renita, and we may even have Adrian to pop in here. Just join us in the breakout session, and that's going to be located in the Women of Color Information Center. And you'll get a chance to meet and network with us. And if you're joining any other seminars, you'll get to network with those folks as well. So with that, I'm going to ask if we can just put up the slides real quick. And I've already given you what our title is for today. I'm going to take a minute to introduce our panelists that we actually have with us. We were looking at two panelists to have with us, but and Adrian may actually pop in. But before I do the introduction, why is this important? Women supporting women. And I tell you, I found this quote here, and I think it just says it all. Bottom line is we should just supporting each other. Number one is just important, but we have to advocate for ourselves. It's great to have others to advocate for us, meaning men, but to advocating for women, we can get so much more done by being able to do that. And we as women, we are nurturing soul. I don't know if it's the mothering part of us, but we just want everybody to be successful. And the fact that we can be able to do that and supporting each other, I think is such a great thing. So with that, I am going to, Adrian is not, it may pop in, but if you have ever been a part of Women of Color or the BEA experience, you probably have seen Adrian around. She's a world-renowned author and just super excited about talent and diversity. And we were hoping to actually have her, but something has come up. So we're just crossing our fingers and see if she may be able to give us a cameo for a few minutes. But hey, have no fear. We've got the superstar, Miss Renita Sphinx in the house. And Miss Renita, I've just only got one of her exquisite awards that she's actually received, because it's the most recent award that she has with GovExec, the 2022 Federal 100 Award recipient. Congratulations, Renita.
Thank you so much, Tony. And thanks so much for having me and being here with this panel on such a grand topic.
Oh, absolutely. And I just want to give you guys a little bit of information about Miss Sphinx here. So she is an SES. If you don't know what that is, those are our senior executives. She just does not wear the uniform, but she is equivalent to a general officer on the civilian side. She's in IT. She's with the Marine Corps. That's why I was giving her, a little shout out and saying this every time I think about it. And I'm like, oh, okay, am I representing the Army or am I representing the Marines? But before actually taking the position she's in right now as the assistant IT director for the CIO for the headquarters of the Marine Corps. She was actually with Marine Forces Cyberspace Command. And this is the nation's first cyber technology, as the nation's first cyber technology officer. In this role, she deployed technology and served as the executive sponsor of intelligence, informed defense cyber operations, and was responsible for transitioning the Marine Corps to a mobile workforce using Microsoft Q365 in record timing. You go, girl.
Yeah, it was. Oh man, that was a very, very, very exciting time for us. In the midst of a pandemic, it was unheard of, unprecedented. It was supposed to take us 2 years. We
Oh
had
my
planned
gosh.
it for 2 years, worked with all of our partners, had examples out of the Air Force on their journey to the cloud,
Yeah,
and we thought it was going to take us 2 years. And COVID-19 happened, and you just didn't have 2 years.
that's right. Yeah.
Precious
So
moment.
COVID-19 changed a whole lot of things for us, for sure.
Yeah.
But you know what? I am sure that the reason why I was in record time is because we had that super woman like you. And we're going to get into later so you can tell us about your superpowers and how you actually made that happen. Not only is Renita actually received just the Gov Exec Award, but she has a few others that I want to give a highlight here. The State of North Carolina 2021 HBCU Living Legend.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. Isn't that something? So I was contacted by my school and said that they wanted me to represent the university at an HBCU event, and of course, I'm not going to turn down that opportunity.
That's right.
And that turned into the HBCU Living Legend nomination. And what that is it is a way where all 11 HBCUs that are in the state of North Carolina, of course, it's fundraising, but it's also opportunities for mentoring. How do we get more people in STEM? But it wasn't just living legends based on technology. It was everything. There was an HBCU living legend who had gotten their degree in music. It was so phenomenal to be there in the room. But of course, women in IT gets a little bit more attention because we're so underrepresented, right? And so
Absolutely.
with just going to the state of North Carolina and having that honor and being able to represent the HBCU community, it's at the top list of high honors. Very humbling moment, but it is the top list that I like to highlight because we need more emphasis at all levels on those opportunities. That family like culture that you get at those HBCUs is unmatched, right? You come out of there and even though you're in IT, most times you're probably the only girl in the room, right? We are
Right. That's right.
those opportunities there, but being able to reach back and look around and see people who understand the challenges that you're overcoming, and then whether they're in IT or not, you get to meet people in communications and arts and criminal justice, and so you get to expand your horizon by just majoring in one thing but having that family space. And being in a PhD program now, um, I don't experience what I experienced when I was at Louisiana Tech way, way, way back. I won't date
Yeah.
myself as far as my age, but I just remember completing a little attendance sheet,
Okay.
and I was number 32, and that was traumatizing to me. That I was a number instead of, you don't want to know my name, so you take attendance by number. But it was 197 kids in that class,
Wow.
and
Wow.
so I loved Louisiana Tech. I wanted to be a lady texter. I have a basketball background, but I chose to go to the Army quickly after that. But I decided that I want to go somewhere smaller so that if I have problems, I'm not a number. I am actually, oh, Renata, what do you need help with? And it's kind of like when you go to your favorite store and they know your name. Oh, Miss Sphinx, come on in. I know
Right.
you like this. It just makes you feel appreciated. So I think that's what the HBCU community does. And so I was honored to be recognized as a living legend. Um, yeah.
That is so awesome, and thank you for sharing with the. And for the audience here, Renita and I have probably crossed paths, but have never had the opportunity to connect. And we found out that we were both 20, well, we were both Stars and Stripes winners. I was in
Yep.
2021 as the Army recipient, and she as the SES in 2020. And then
Yep.
Renita, you just tell me that you were a basketball, a hooper, and I
Yes.
attended Prairie View and was and played basketball as well. So you just never know all these connections that we actually have and make, and that's what I love about Women of Color and Bea, and events such as this, because we just expand our network. I know now if I got an IT issue or talking about cyber, I know the first person I'm going to call.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna be ready to provide my expertise or give you some resources within that expansive network so we can always stick together and move in every institution forward. It's such an honor to be able to connect.
Absolutely. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. As much as we want to keep your beautiful face up here, I know I've already gotten so, um, you know, this is about women supporting each other, and as it says here, incredible things can happen. I'm a big person of quotes. I love quotes, and I at my desk right now, I've got probably about 15 stickies on the edge of my computer, of my monitor, that just help to inspire me. And one is truly is this one right here that talks about how we can be able to create incredible things when we actually work together.
Mhm.
So, and as we talk about that, um, I just want to get from you, what when you think of the topic that we super mega women supporting women, helping to support and elevate our female colleagues. Can you just tell me what that means to you?
So, Tony, before I answer your question, this life of mine has gotten so expansive that I have to be careful. So I am unctioned to provide a disclaimer. It's
Okay.
kind of odd, but I have to say and let everyone know that everything that Miss Tony and I talk about today is of my own personal opinion and does not represent the equities of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the federal government. It's kind of weird and wonky, but I am charged to say that. Now that we got that preliminary out of the way, what does it mean? Supporting each other, I think, is critical. I like the quote, but the most important three words there are support, incredible, and happen,
Mhm.
right? And so I think that nothing incredible can happen if we don't support each other. Um, for that reason, I think things like what you just said, the Bea, women of color, but all of the things that happens in between, from connecting about panels, just saying hello, checking in, or just being there to be supportive because of the challenges you may be experiencing. I think the most recent challenge we've experienced is the COVID-19. I think that was the most mentally debilitating challenge for me and people I work with and the people in my lives. But the support and seeing people band together during the stop move, I know you were a part of that as active duty when it was, well, the Department of Defense. We had all these different rules we had to align to keep each other safe. But what I enjoyed about that was seeing us all band together and be empathetic and supportive to each other. Um, just the fact of adopting technology and making it such a major part of our way of communicating, it was amazing. And so I think it's very important that if we support each other, incredible things can happen. And I know you're the moderator, and I just kind of want this a little bit more conversational. I'm a little interested in understanding, what does it mean to support each other? Like, what are some of the examples that you think we should talk about for the audience today? Because when we just say support, what does that mean? I think supporting each other can sometimes be diluted because we gloss over so fast. Oh, we just support each other. Well, what does that mean? That means, to me, not just all the feel good stuff. I want Tony to be able to call me and say, sis, you misstepped right here. What were you thinking? How can I help? What can I do to support you? I think that that's the critical piece. It's not all the feel good. The feel good part is easy. It is when we are, as humans, we misstep and we make errors, and it can be conflicting and controversial. But I love having people in my life who will tell me about my misstep and then give me that opportunity to course correct or suggestions on how to course correct. But I'm interested in your thoughts.
No, I mean, you are absolutely right. And for I always call it, my circle of trust.
Mm.
And these are the people, no matter what actually happens, I can go to, or if they're at a event with me and they can be able to be what I call real. I mean, this is the real deal. You're going to tell
Mm-hmm.
me how it is. You're going to recommend, things that maybe I have not actually done. It's also part of like that sponsorship. I'll give you an example that happened. So I remember when I was getting ready to compete for my O6 command, my first O6 command, and I submitted my list to one of my mentors. It's a female, and I gave her my list, and she came back to me and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean, ma'am?" And she was like, "Why do you have these options on here for command? You've already done these things. This is not where we need to go with you. We're trying to make sure that you are ready for the next challenge. And so
Yeah.
let's relook at this list and be able to make some determinations of what is putting that's making you uncomfortable." And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the type of support that I think you are talking about, in which I truly, truly admire, with my other female colleagues, because
Yeah.
if we are not true with each other, then no, sometimes no one in the room will be actually true with us, because it's there in many cases we're the only one, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or so you got to go in there prepared for the
Yeah.
unprepared, because
Mm-hmm.
you never know what's going to happen. But to be able to have such individuals in your life that can support you from that standpoint, is absolutely critical
Yeah.
to continue to advance.
Yep. Absolutely. I think your example is spot on. And that's how we grow.
Yeah.
That those are opportunities and different people's perspectives, and being able for someone to be comfortable enough to say, hey, that's good and all, but you've done that, I want you to stretch a little bit.
Yes.
It definitely helps me build confidence when someone shows me that they want me to stretch, and what I see is not a person who wants to see me fail, but what I do see is a person is trying to show me, here's an area you can succeed in, just believe in yourself, keep pushing, and don't stay where, like you said, don't stay where it's comfortable.
That's right. I call it that tough love. That
Yeah.
is truly, truly what it is. Speaking of which, I just mentioned about the fact that a lot of times, especially as a woman of color, we find ourselves to be the only one in the room. And also another thing, in as far as building up and not tearing down, there's this thing about stereotypes, and always a bias in regards to what the perception that's there before you even have opened your mouth. It's like
Mhm.
judging the book by just the person has just walked in. So
Yeah.
can you tell us about a situation or a time when um, biases impact you, and positively or negatively, in the sphere of which you've been working?
Absolutely. I call this hard conversations, right? These are sensitive conversations, and most times we always want to have the good news story. But I think what's valuable, one thing I like about Oprah Winfrey was when she introduced the Life You Want tour, and I had a chance to attend it, and it was life changing for me. That was 2015. I set some goals. I still have my journal in there, and it was phenomenal. But what I liked about some of the things she said was, and Donna Brazil was there as well, and she said a few things that touched my life permanently. But she would say things like, "This is where I am today,"
Mhm.
or she would say things like, from an authentic place and being still and getting to deal with me. So because of those impacts in my life, I like to answer this question on the negative side.
Okay.
And it's not because I'm a negative person. I am a very positive person, but I don't think we can help each other if we act like this road has been easy
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's.
It's
So I'm
not.
just, I'm just not going to do that. Okay, so I'm just giving everyone a disclaimer that I'm not going to do that. And and I think it's going to be helpful. So the stories are endless on my success. I mean, I'm an SES, young. I'm an African American woman, and I am from the South. So we hear about biases and stereotypes, and in Louisiana, I was told this statistic. I had never looked it up, Tony, but I was informed of this statistic at a happy hour recently, that Louisiana is one of the lowest ranking educational areas. So how did you come to major in IT? And that hurt my feelings. I'm just being real. That person hurt my feelings. And I looked at him and I said, wow, I didn't know that statistic. And he said, yeah. So when you say you're from Louisiana and I read your bio that you like the Aints, the Saints, that's what they say when. And I was stuck on how derogatory it was when he told me what the ranking was. And so, how did I turn that into something positive? I looked at him and I said, so why do you think that matters on a full scale of a state ranking that may or may not be true? Okay, because I'm all about validating data and where these numbers are coming from. But that, I said, that would take us into a whole nother conversation. But why do you think it's important to judge someone because of where they're from? You don't expect them to be able to work in information technology. And in his word, let's only be an SES in the Marine Corps. So it's those kinds of experiences that shake you to the core if you're honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm thankful for women of color. I call it a community, the women of color community. By the time Women of Color happens in October and December comes, you're fit, it's kind of fizzling down. And then you get an email from Eric and it fizzes back up because now you got to do band. And so you have a whole consistently every year, you have those moments where you get re-energized and you get reinvigorated. So that was one thing. But in the workplace, I think is one of the largest challenges that I'd like to share. Um, I won't say which agency it was, and I won't be very specific, but I did experience work being removed from me, unexplained. I was doing a great job. It was a high visibility project. It was all the way at the secretary level. So that at the secretary level is equivalent to those 3 and 4-star generals. Um, and my management team took the job from me, or took the work from me at that particular project after, Tony, after I had did all the research. I had put together the entire work breakdown structure. I had put together all of the risks, identified all of the resources,
You've done all the work.
I did everything, and it was great. It was wonderful, and it was handed off to another person. And I'm going to be transparent here. It was handed off to a person who I felt like didn't qualify to execute that particular project. And this was a point in my life where I had set goals and I was empowered. And I also wanted to understand the space I was working in. And I didn't want to be biased. I didn't want to listen to what people were telling me I was experiencing. I wanted to hear it for myself, because part of me did not believe that this is happening to me because I'm a girl. I didn't want to believe it. And I asked him the question. I said, do you think I can't execute the work because it's too hard? And he said, well, girls are really good at planning. And you did a really good job with the financial piece. You did good on the RACI chart, but I got to give it to him over here to do the execution, because he has the engineering experience. And he's going to know if this technology is really going to work, this technology you suggested. And that hurt me to my core. And I said, well, is it because he has an engineering background, or is it because I'm a girl and I shouldn't have that background? Because even though you're in my management team, he wasn't my immediate boss. Gotcha. So he didn't know my resume. He didn't hire me. He was just a person that was brought in for this particular special project, to lead this special project. And he said, there's no way you have life cycle background. And you probably did a lot of research, and probably, usually stuff like this is copy and pasted. I mean, this conversation was just full of all kinds of biases. And so that was the experience. And now let me tell you how I handled it. And this took a lot of mentoring. and I talked to a lot of people to include males. I did. I asked white male, black males. It didn't matter to me because I wanted multiple perspectives and how you think I should handle the situation. And so I handled it by complying with what was asked.
Mhm.
I transitioned the project because that is the directive I was given, and I have a military background.
Right.
That's that discipline. That's what's critical to success, is understanding how to do what you're told, even if you disagree with it. If it's legally, ethically, and morally right, you got to execute. And
Move
so
forward.
I handed it over, and I looked at him. Let's just say his name was Paul. That wasn't his name, but let's just say it was Paul. I looked at Paul and I said, I'm supposed to hand this project over to you. Here's all the work. Let me know where you need help. That is what I did. What I didn't do is hand it over, fold my arms, go back to my desk, and say, I hope it fails.
That's right.
And so when I did that, it opened up another side of me that I didn't even know needed to be opened, a blind spot that I had had. Because in the past, I would take my ball and go home, is what I would call it. It's like, I'm just done. He wants to handle it. You don't grow that way. You don't evolve. And I had someone tell me, you can't do that, Renata. And this was a harsh conversation. I stopped talking to this particular mentor for 4 years when she told me, you can't do this, you cannot do that, you're not going to be, because I felt like she was being harsh. And I was not good at taking constructive criticism, Tony. I just wasn't. And I
That's
was
the support that you needed that you didn't know you needed.
yeah. And I'm like, but they're being biased and they're stereotyping. And she was so consistent. And I didn't talk to her for at least 3.5, 4 years. I didn't realize it until she told me. And I was like, that's not why I stopped talking to you. I didn't stop talking to you. I was just busy and I didn't have a chance to catch back up to you. But it was the timing of it. It really wasn't purposeful. We were very successful with that project. We did a first ever in the federal government. I was working well beyond a GS 911 position description, please believe.
Mhm.
But I have a best friend for life. I still talk to that guy to this day. We took on so many challenges together. I learned a lot, he learned a lot, and I think I would have missed that growth opportunity had I not had the support of others telling me, how do you actually handle this when you're dealing with biases and stereotypes?
Mhm. Mhm.
And number two, having the intestinal fortitude to want to do something that is about growth and turn something that's negative into a positive. But it happens. We can't ignore that it doesn't happen. I mean, that it does happen. I think it's one of those, and to piggyback on you and your quotes and how you like to, annotate quotes. I think there's somewhere where it says, you cannot change what other people do, but you control how you react.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And that, you talking about that experience there, and it happens in the military as well.
Mm.
I can remember being just a second lieutenant and buying interviewing for a job, and not getting it, and being like, hey, I know I have my qualifications are just as good as someone else's. And it actually was after the fact that you talk about becoming very good. It was my company commander. And I'm like, why is he doing this? I know I can actually do this job much better than the person that they selected. But afterwards, when we became friends, and I just kept doing just what you said, just kept supporting and doing those things, we had a conversation. And the first thing he said to me was that he wanted to apologize because he actually, because of his biases, said,
Mhm.
I didn't think a female, nor did I think an African American was capable of having
Mhm.
the intestinal fortitude to do the things that were needed to be done. But you've proven me wrong. And not because I gave you the job, because I didn't. What you did was you continued to support the person who did get the
Mhm.
job. And so we're just letting them know that it's much bigger than us.
Yeah.
It's not about us as individuals, as women, but it's about making sure that the whole team is being successful. And it's great to hear that the individual that you were working with as well, he accepted that. He
Yeah.
accepted, the support that you wanted because he probably felt the same way. There is no way I could actually do this. And Renata has done so much work here. Then why, I got to take advantage of this, and
Mm-hmm.
so it helps to actually to grow that. So as we talk about stereotypes, you just talked about a strategy that you actually use to be able to kind of overcome of one of those situations. Are there other strategies or things that you have heard that you've had other techniques that you've used to be able to try to overcome those, or that you think that would be useful for our audience? And before you answer that, let me just remind everyone that, hey, there is this QR code that we have that's on the slides. And if you've got a question, please put it in. We've got some things that we're talking about here, but if there's something that's just burning your ear, don't hesitate to put that question in there. We'll definitely get to it. Okay.
Absolutely. I hope they do actually submit some questions, because I want to hear what they're thinking out there and what
Absolutely.
some of their burning questions are. But to answer your question of any specific other strategies, you mentioned being focused on it's not just about you and being considerate of the team. I think that that builds character. That it shows you a lot about who you are as a woman in technology, or if you are in any other field where you feel underrepresented or overlooked, etc. So there's a couple strategies that I think are very important. People disagree with me sometimes on this answer, Tony, but I stand by it. In the past, you can hear other people say, I have to be better, 100% better than this person, or I have to show up in the room. And, you feel like you aren't held to the same standard as someone else might be, whether that's another race or gender. Because you can be the same gender and feel like, but if I've heard people say, well, if you were a Caucasian woman, then da 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 da. And you've heard conversations about privilege and things like that. I tell you from the deepest pits of my heart, one strategy is I don't listen to any of that stuff. I'm just gonna tell you, I just don't.
Turn it away.
I just don't. I don't have time to spend on the negative opinions of others. You may think it's because I'm black. You may think it's because she's white. You may think it's because she's a female. I really am so exhausted with it that I really just don't care, because I can't change it. I acknowledge that it's present. There's something present, because I've had experiences where I have harsh conversations and they look at you and say they didn't even realize that they were making you feel that way.
Yeah.
You know, and had you not stopped and had that conversation, you're operating off of a lot of assumptions. And these were people who were very influential and they were making decisions for the organization. And I was bold enough to just call them to the side, not all out in the open, in a meeting and being embarrassing and over belligerent, because there's another bias of angry black woman that's out there that you have to be cognizant of. But having that mental presence to know that I think it's best to describe it how my mom and dad used to tell us when I was growing up. Don't assume the worst in a person. Give them the benefit of the doubt until they prove to you what it is that you can now prove with facts. Um, And so that's one strategy when I start to feel it. And when you feel it because you tighten up a little bit, you get a little stressed to feel like something isn't natural here, something isn't right. So strategically, I mentally prepare myself to see things on the positive side first until proven otherwise. That's the first thing. But I also strategically take action because I need that proof sooner than later. I really don't have a lot of time to have a project fail because I didn't understand a lot of the opportunities that were being presented to me. So I ask questions, and I don't do it in a negative manner. It's not combative. It is not, I'm not asking the question based on to drive conflict. I ask the question to do one of two things, and sometimes both: to increase my understanding or to increase your consciousness. Because my experience has been, and I don't know if they were being authentic or not, but I'm a very authentic person. My experience has been when I asked the person, do you know that's how you made me feel? And is there any way that you and I can have a better conversation? Because I don't know if that's how you meant for your actions to come out.
Right. Uh-huh.
Now, I want to be I've got to maintain my authenticity. I've had a conversation and that person looked at me and said, I absolutely meant it that way. You people just really get on my nerves. And all of this Me Too movement is so like, he was very honest though. He was really very honest. And that was one of those opportunities where I accepted who he is. I accepted his position and I respected it. And now I know how to handle you. Okay. So I don't run. It's not a strategy where, well, you just you brush it under the rug and you accept it. No, you have to accept when a person is very steadfast in their beliefs and their upbringings and things like that. But then now you know how to handle that person. Now you know which part of the toolbox you need to go in, whether that's your screwdriver to bolt together better relationships with that person and find things that you have in common so that you can build with that person a little bit more, and possibly, I take it as a challenge. Maybe change that person's perspective.
Right.
I can't change your belief, but I can change how you deal with me, and hopefully that same energy transmutes to another place. So that's one strategy: accepting, and then knowing that you can't change people. But the last one is, I read a poem, Fear, at least 3 times a week. At least 3 times a week. I know it. I know what the words are, but every time I read it for the past 4 years, I learn something new. Most people hear, what is, fear that you're inadequate, but why would you feel that way? You're God's child. And when you allow yourself to let fear be overcome and you pursue the things you want to pursue, it gives the next person the okay to do the same. That whole poem changes my life every time I read it, because in different situations it means something different. Sometimes it's unconscious, sometimes it's consciousness, but every time you experience some of the challenges and potential setbacks that we experience so often, as a woman of color, if you don't have a positive outlook and find opportunities to still achieve your goal, whether that's mentoring, then you do your own self and others in our space an injustice. And then the last strategy is asking for help. You can't be too proud to know when there's something that you're experiencing that is too much. Those are my words. When people say, Renata, how are you doing? And if I'm going through something, I will say it's too much. I can't, I don't know how to handle this. And what I love about when women support each other, incredible things happen. That level of vulnerability that I just showed allows that other person to show vulnerabilities and share their stories. And then we come up with things that we can do to cope and get through it, whether it's to get through it yourself or actions that you need to take that won't be detrimental to your career. It won't expand relationships. And so that last strategy is seeking the wisdom of others. And I think that probably one is the most important thing that's been very helpful for me over my career, Tony. I realize that I am youthful. I'm not as seasoned as some of the other females in IT who have blazed trails. It's not a whole lot of us, but there have been some trailblazers. And being able to reach out to them and they are able to come in and give me that perspective is invaluable. Those generational differences are so important because of the perspectives that you get to glean from by what you're experiencing today.
Wow. I mean, Renita, you just gave us a mouthful there. And the last piece of, having those you talk about that have blazed the trail before you. And in many times they didn't get the credit for the stuff that they're actually doing, but they're pouring into others like yourself and me for just, they're saying, hey, we might have opened the window a little bit or cracked the door, but we're
Yeah.
looking for you to just put that foot and just push it on
Yes.
open so that we can be able to continue to grow and expand and get others to be able to see what we as women are capable of doing. And
Yeah.
so I think that's great of being part of helping to build the next generation and helping to build women up as you see them. And I just want to ask, especially where you are. I'm not
Hmm.
sure if there are limited amount of women, but being an SESer, being former military, what role have you actually played or feel like you are playing in helping to build that next generation of women that are to come? That
That's
to
a
help
good
us here.
question. That's an awesome question. I've been with the Marine Corps for 4 years, and I think I learned something new every day. The way we manage talent in the Marine Corps is probably something not purposeful to the Marine Corps, but I just don't think they do it on purpose. But we're kind of stoic. We're kind
Mhm.
of we're kind of people think we're unapproachable, and I say we because I'm a Marine civilian. I can
I
say
got
that.
you. I-
But we are really so easy to get along with. We have the same challenges that everyone else has. We realize the Marine Corps is not perfect. We're trying to change. It's almost like they say, how do you move a big ship quickly, right? When you think of the Navy, right? And it is hard, but I work with a phenomenal group of people, male and female. Okay. You know, General Maluk, I love her to pieces. Lorna Maluk, she's over at NSA now, but being able to work with her as an African American woman is such a great opportunity, and it is rare. But not only do I work with African American women, but I also work with Caucasian women. I work with women in the IT space where the Marine Corps has deliberately made decisions not based on checking a box of diversity, because let's be clear, if you don't qualify, you don't have that teamwork mentality, if you don't support the ethos and the values of the Marine Corps that they drill into you, and
Mhm.
Army has the values as well. Air Force, we all as service members have those values within the Department of Defense. And I'm not saying, external to the DoD, we're any better than anyone else, but where I sit today, I think that making sure that we participate in the SES meetings that we have, we gather together and we do things like what we're doing now. We strategize. How do we make ourselves more available for mentoring? How do we make ourselves more available to address the problems and challenges that maybe your employees are not comfortable yet to come and tell you about?
Yeah.
How
Mhm.
do we use context clues? Pay attention to your employees. How do you ask the right questions so you can kind of figure out what's going on? So that's at the SES level of supporting each other and general officers. But more importantly, we have different programs that we have set up just based on leadership, based on managing talent. Our commandant has an actual mission thread for talent management. Who heard of that? Like, it's unheard of that a commandant, of all the things that he could make a priority, the way he manages his workforce, his civilian and his military structure, is something we spend hours on, Tony. Do you hear what I'm saying?
That's great.
Hours.
That's great.
And the feedback and stickies are all over the place, and our leaders are taking that information and those perspectives, and it's constant dialogue. So that piece is critical. But where I see myself as is doing things like this, making sure that I'm participating in as many sessions as my time will allow, um, as many opportunities when I can have mentoring sessions, but also being able to have a network of people who are also available for mentoring, so that I don't risk missing someone's opportunity to get the right mentoring or to have a mentor. Um, but also being transparent on your story is
Right.
critical as well.
No, it's
You
absolutely
know, I have a website that I don't post to a lot, but I do go to a lot of different people's blogs and I don't do a lot of Facebook and YouTube things, but I do try to share my story of how I got here in my bio, and that's important to me because I didn't have a traditional path. I didn't, I didn't spend 20 years in the military and retire and then transition as a civilian. That's someone's story, but that's not my story.
Yeah.
And so, because of the diversity of thought, because of being in a tough profession that's challenging all the time, um, because of that, I like to share my diversity story because you're always going to, I think you're always going to encounter challenges that you didn't anticipate. And so having that maneuver space and that flexibility is critical. And so I think me sharing that story and me um, being on the different platforms and responding to emails, just something as simple as responding to a person's email goes a lot. It just goes so far. I remember, Tony, when I was not an SES.
Yeah.
I remember when I was at Black Engineer of the Year Award conferences. I remember going to the many different symposiums that happened all around Washington, D.C., and not knowing how to get the right guidance and being afraid to even speak to
Ask,
anyone,
right? Yeah.
being afraid to introduce myself. And then I remember how I felt. So I take it to heart that within the Marine Corps, as well as all of the forums that we participate with in our partners for things like Career Communications Group, and many others. But for today, it is something that I think we have to continue to do. And I take it as a personal charge to continue until, as long as God gives me the strength in my body, then I'm going to continue to be here to not only blaze trails, but I like to tell people that I build bridges. Because maybe you don't want to work in IT. Maybe you're an accountant. Maybe you're a teacher, which teachers don't get a lot of credit.
That's
They
right.
should be
Yeah.
some of the highest paid people in the world, in my opinion. But no matter what your profession is and what your goals are, I like to say either I'm going to blaze a trail. If you're coming for IT, here's a trail. You got to know that there may be some detours there, but this is a big trail. You got a whole lot of options. I want you to know that. But just in case that's not the direction you're going, then I want to build a bridge to get you on that path of where you can go see Tony because you want to work at the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah.
So it's twofold for me, and I do take it personally, and I'm happy to be a part of an institution that supports that.
No, absolutely. We say that the federal government, at least for our military services, are the leader when it comes to equal opportunity. We're not perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to equal opportunity, I think we're finding that it's getting better and better. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to have a dialogue with our audience, and I understand we've got a few questions in the pipeline. So as much as I can sit here and talk to you all day about the questions I have, I'm going to see if we can open it up and get a few of those questions. And we've got probably about another 15 minutes or so before we close this session out. And so, yeah, I'm ready for let me see some of the questions. Who are the people that improved your life? Okay. So talk to us about that. Mine is a laundry list. And I just want to say, you talked about educators. Both of my parents were educators, and my husband is a middle school math teacher. And you are so right. Those are the people that should be getting the millions of dollars
Yeah.
contracts. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, they're the least paid, but they have the most influence on
Mm-hmm.
where people like you and myself and others are going. So talk to us about who those people are that help to improve your life.
Man, lest I leave someone out, I will say categorically, okay? I will just say very categorically, definitely educators, all the way up to the current PhD program I'm in now. The educators, the teachers, the professors, librarians, you name it. Man, math was my favorite subject, so I will say math teachers.
Yay.
But um, I think probably just to answer the question, and there's a myriad of mentors, etc. I think the best people who improve my life personally is my circle of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Professionally is my employees.
Yeah.
Um,
Good every
I have
day.
a great boss. They are phenomenal. I have 3, 4 ranks of bosses. I have what I call counter bosses, people who are not my boss, but they are people I seek out for professional work and advice. And then they assess me as if they're my boss. So I call them
Mhm.
my co-bosses. But I think I'll change the question to who are the people that have, who are the people who are the most impactful to me in my life. And I will say professionally, it's my circle of trust. My children are in my circle of trust. My boyfriend is in my circle of trust. My mother is the queen of the circle of trust.
Absolutely.
Okay. She prays with me. She blesses me. She anoints me. She makes sure that I have whatever it is I need. And I am so grateful for that. But in the professional place, it is my employees. I haven't met an employee yet that I don't get something from them that
Mhm.
improves my life.
You know what, they help to make us better, right?
Hmm.
Even if it's not the most I would say impressive employee, or the one that's
Yes.
that, the most challenging employee, still
Yeah.
helps to improve you.
Absolutely.
It just makes
Absolutely.
you that much better. And
Hmm.
I two shout outs. This week is education is teacher appreciation week, so
Yep.
we will give a shout out to the teachers for what they actually do. I mean, it's so important. And then you mentioned being a mom. And
Mhm.
I'm a mom too. So we're going to all the moms on the line, we're going to give a shout out and say Happy Mother's Day, because
Happy Mommy's
Sunday
Day.
is coming. So,
Yes.
and we, need that love and support. Again,
Yep.
it's women supporting women, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Your mom supporting you. That's another woman supporting you. All right, let's see if we can. Okay, can you recommend any resources or groups that a woman can join to build confidence and learn support in the workplace?
Hmm. So, depending on the agency you work for, usually there are some groups that are started. I know within the DoD we have. Um, oh, I don't know if I should say that, but I'm going to say it. We have a couple sororities
Yep.
that meet up, and we support each other that way. Women of color, this platform, the Black Engineer of the Year Award is a great platform. There are also CCMG actually has every Saturday when they have different spotlights that are happening, whether that's in the STEM community and the metaverse. So you can definitely follow that channel. There's a lot of resources there. Um, there's Women in Technology, WIT. Then there's WIN. There's so many out there that I could just rattle off.
Yeah. Federal, I think
Confidence to learn.
few federal employed women.
Yeah.
That's another one. Yeah.
Hmm. There are some. There's also big Blacks in Government. That's
Yep.
a good
Mhm.
one. Um, there's also Black Tech in Government. So there's many of platforms out there. A simple Google search can give you some choices, but those ones that I just named are the ones that come top of the mind for me. Um, and I have to say it, the sororities and different organizations that have memberships,
Yep.
those are some go-to places and people who could be more resourceful to you as well. Doesn't mean you have to join a sorority, but most people who are have those memberships have other resources, or they know about different things. There's local chamber of commerce, the state level have different groups, so it's probably a simple Google, and then you just have to assess your interest.
And another recommendation is just go to your EEO officer, and I'm sure that they can be able to point you in the right direction of which ones are platforms you have in the circle of where you're actually working. We here at the South Pacific Division, we do a women's forum, and we every other month we have a seminar. It's only for an hour. This one recently that we did this week talked about women with disabilities and how they are making an impact in the in the workforce. And so, again, when we talk about diversity, a lot of times we talk about it's just a color thing, or men or versus women, and it's not. It really isn't. There's so many things that make us diverse in who we are as individuals. And I just found that the one about women with disabilities and how these women are kicking butt and taking names, I was like so impressed with how the things that they are doing. And then they're saying, don't use this disability as a way of saying that I can't do anything. I'm going to show you that I can do it with the disability. So don't have any pity on me. I want to work just like everyone else. And it was super, super awesome. So definitely the names that we just, of a few of the organizations we just mentioned, but definitely checking with your EEO officer, and I'm sure they can point you into the direction of where in your workplace that you can find that support and have that dialogue. Let's see. Confidence is tricky for me. Can you suggest some tips for building it? I'm going to start. I'm going to tell you something that I do, and then I'm going to let you go. I used to always say that I do not have all the best confidence in the world. But you know what it started with? My mom actually did this way, was just going in front of the mirror. And if I had a presentation that I had to make, I actually did that presentation in the mirror to make me feel comfortable with the presentation, with the information, but about how I was actually pronunciating and actually presenting myself as an individual. And someone once told me, one of my mentors told me, was that anytime you speak as if like you are the subject matter. Now you got to do your research, but you are the subject matter and know the information that you actually have. And when you do that, whether or not that's true, that's how you come off. And you not only exude confidence, but you also exude the trust in the individuals that you are working with, to know that, hey, this individual is definitely understanding what it is that we're asking them to do, or understanding the information of which needed to be presented. And so that's with getting in the mirror. My mom started that very early. My first public speaking was as a kindergartner, and she was like, "You're going to learn this speech. We'll rehearse it without the paper. You're going to know it by heart, and we're going to sit in this mirror and actually build that confidence." So, what do you think?
I like the mirror, right? So I went and grabbed my mirror. I want to show everybody.
Oh,
this is
awesome.
a mirror. This is a little IKEA mirror, and I don't endorse or not endorse IKEA, but that's where I bought it from. Okay, it was like $4, and there's a whole bunch of words on this mirror, and you see things like "you are enough." I have unconditional, trust in God, don't carry dead weight. It's a whole different things. Depending on what I'm going through, I spray this thing and I start over. But when you get in the mirror and you're talking and you're working through briefings and things like that, absolutely. But the confidence that I have built in my own self started with the mirror, like Tony, but these positive affirmations, you see a few behind me here. I keep all that around me because, Tony talked about kindergarten. One thing about parenting, and everyone knows this, whether you're a parent or not, you've heard it before. When you start to teach people from a baby up, that's how they learn English. If you start teaching them a different language, most times as a child, they're gonna pick it up before, as opposed to as an adult, it'd be a little bit more difficult. So that is the same thing. If you write it and you consistently are seeing it every day, and you have to believe in yourself. And how do you increase your belief in yourself so that you can build your confidence? Like Tony said, you got to do your research. You can't be confident if you really don't, you haven't dedicated that time that's needed to be an expert in whatever it is you're trying to communicate. But the second one is, if you really don't have a great character, it's going to be hard for other people to have confidence in you as a person. So you got to build character and you got to build expertise. And that's all about integrity and just doing the right thing. No matter if it's about a show, just do the right thing. Just live a righteous life as best you can. I didn't say perfect, because no one is perfect. I'm not
Right.
perfect. Miss Tony's not perfect.
Definitely.
You know, we're striving for, you're consistently striving for perfection, and understanding good enough is enough, right? And so I think that that's the most important piece. Build your character and expertise, and the confidence will come. You got to practice it, and you have to keep yourself surrounded by those positive affirmations. That's what's worked for me.
Yeah. And step out on faith. Step
Yeah.
out a little bit outside of your comfort zone. It may be a small project,
Yeah.
that you start and you take on. And maybe with a organization, it doesn't necessarily have to be at work. Because I know for me, I do a lot of, I know, Renata, you have a nonprofit organization
Mhm.
as well, but I do a lot of community service. And for that, that helps as well in building that confidence, doing the small things. And then it relates. As much as we want to keep our personal and professional lives separate, there are
Yeah.
some things that cross boundaries. And when it
Mhm.
comes to confidence and things of that nature, that's one for sure that is a crossing of boundary. You can start small. You can start even in your church, by giving the announcements. I mean, things like that help to actually build that confidence in who you are as an individual and being able to present yourself. All right. Hey, we've got about 8 minutes left, and I want to see if we've got a few other questions here. We probably can take. Okay. How have you balanced being vulnerable and open at work without falling into pitfalls of being labeled as weak, incompetent, not ready for the next opportunity? Wow. Um, Want to ponder on that?
Well, there is no balance. There's no balance. I haven't balanced that scale yet. It is something that I deal with every day. I am consistently concerned about being labeled as incompetent, not good enough, not ready for the next opportunity. How I have handled it is understanding that I'm not going to balance
Wow.
it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to accept that this whole perspective of me matters, because I know who I am. That's that confidence, right? But if you are in a space where you're building and you're just not quite there, or you're not where you want to be, the advice I would give you is build up a circle of trust. You probably already have one. You probably just haven't really thought about it, but just think about who's your circle of trust. Who can you go to and talk to when you start to feel those different things? Um, and then getting the advice of others is great as well. But what has been most helpful for me, because you use the word vulnerable, whoever asked this question, because you use the word vulnerable and open at work without falling into pitfalls, journaling is so important until you can get to a space where you do have a circle of trust, because you don't want to be in the workplace and everyone is concerned about everyone knowing your business. So let's just be clear.
Yeah.
Being open at work and being vulnerable, it's really not a balance, it's a judgment call. And being base your judgment on people you can trust. And if you're not there, I write a lot, I journal a lot, I go back and reread it until I'm ready to consume it. And if you don't have that kind of time, kill them with expertise. just be expert, stick to the facts, don't have any feelings, and then call somebody like me and Tony, and we'll help you do the rest.
And I'm gonna. I mean, you are right though about the fact that no matter what job that we are in, we're gonna have some of these feelings here because of just who we are as
Yeah, you're
individuals.
human.
And yeah, and so someone told me once before I think it was when I took my first job as a commander, as a lieutenant colonel. And I was very nervous because the guy that before me, I thought he had done a very good job. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know all the stuff that he knows? And he said, you know what, Tony, you just need to be you. You
Hmm.
need to be your authentic self,
Yeah.
and things will work out how they're supposed to. And I tell you, that has helped. That has been my mantra. I tell my team all the time, hey, you guys know I'm very transparent. I'll tell you how I'm feeling. And I use a lot of analogies with my kids and things of that nature. But the thing is, nobody's perfect. We're all
Hmm.
human. We are gonna make mistakes,
Yeah.
and so that's the vulnerability piece of it. but just admitting, hey, that probably wasn't the right call, but
Mhm.
I've learned from that, and this is how we're moving forward. You just got to own it. You've got
Yeah.
to own it and know that it's just a space of which we actually live.
Absolutely. And that's, super mega ultra women. That is what your superpower is. What Tony just talked about is your superpower is being you, because everyone else is taken anyway.
That's
So
right.
you can't be someone else because they're busy being themselves. So you have to be so busy being yourself. And that means yourself where you are today, and making sure that you take on those challenges. Understand that there's always going to be opportunities for growth. You never stop growing, because if you grow, then you evolve, and when you evolve, you can innovate, and it just keeps going. And you never know whose life you're touching. You never know who else you're helping out. So you owe it to yourself to be your authentic self, and understand that the largest superpower you have is what God has given you right there inside of you. And everyone else that's in your
Mhm.
circle is there to help birth some of those new things that help you be vulnerable when you need to be, and exude strength when you need to be. The incompetence and weakness, let's just throw all those labels over there in the trash. We're not going to accept those. We accept that there are challenges and there's areas of improvement, but the strongest person is one of the people who can look at their lives and say, I think I should do this different, and I need to learn how to do that better. But that actually doesn't mean you're weak. It actually means you're very strong.
Absolutely. So let's I think we're going to have that to be our last question. And I'm going to put the slides back up just to give our contact information. If you got other questions that you want to ask us, I'm going to go to the last slide here. Yep. Hey, these are our contacts. Please don't hesitate. We're going to go into the next room after this. So if you want to continue the dialogue with Renata and myself, please join us there. I want to say thank you for being such a great panel member. I guest keynote today. This was completely awesome. And I know if Adrienne was here, she would say the same thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing you, hopefully at Women of Color or Bea. And the link, yeah, you should actually have it. I think it's scrolling at the bottom, so that you can actually be a part of the open session with us. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully we gave you some tips and techniques that you can actually use. And again, happy Mother's Day. If you're a teacher, happy Teacher Appreciation Week. And just keep being you and keep striving for success. We know that that's the only way we can go is up.
This event is powered by Shindig Virtual Events.
Sorry.
No, the only place we can go is up. And so these conferences like this help us to be able to do that. So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the Women in STEM panel room.